How is it going, guys? This is an electronic lesson provided to you by Ahmed, who's going to tell you about what you need to prepare for the mid-year exam. This will be a very short video because, as I said, I'm not going to give you. I actually didn't say anything like that, but anyways, I meant to say that I'm not going to teach you anything today. I will not teach you anything. What's there is sufficient enough for the exam. And let me just remind you about the things that we've studied this year. I think in the beginning of the year we talked about some basic methods of translating sentences, and we talked about transference, we talked about literal translation, and there was also one more thing which I forgot. I think it was transference, literal translation, and word for word translation, which, mind you, really, the difference between literal translation and word for word translation isn't that much obvious to many people, and I'm pretty sure because people do not know the difference, but there are actually some subtle differences, some small differences between literal translation and word for word translation. And I think I explained the differences in the classroom. I said that word for word translation, the translator sticks exactly with or translates the sentence, source language sentence, exactly the way it is, word for word. Everything. Sorry about coughing. But when we talk about literal translation, we said it's also you translate the words, but you do not add the ulterior motive. You do not add deep, any other. I think Chomsky talked about surface level and deep level meaning. You do not add the deep level meaning, if I were to use Chomsky's terminology here, when you're translating sentences literally. Anyways, so yeah, transference, and we talked about literal translation. We just a quick word about transference. When we said transference, or when we talked about transference, we said that in transference, what you have is because the vocabularies that the translator is translating from the source language to target language both happen to be the same in both of the languages. So the translator isn't really translating a sentence, or sorry, translating a word. They're transferring a word from one language to the other language. Um, Here I mean the target language. Again, I do apologize for coughing. What else? One of the topics that we had was psychology terms. We gave you words. Well, I'm referring to myself as we, as though I'm from a royal family who is ruling some kingdom. But yeah, I should have said I. I discussed psychology terms like depression, anxiety, narcissism. We talked about personality issues, personality problems. We talked about symptoms, phobia, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. We talked about that's it. I think there was other things like PTSD, which we also discussed in the lesson. But anyways, what else did we talk about? Yes, we talked about plaintiff, defender, legal vocabularies. These are plaintiff, defendant, the judge, and sentence. Um, Again, I'm always referring to myself as we. Uh, Interestingly, this is actually called the royal we, so I do apologize for sounding too royal. Anyways, so other legal vocabularies I talked about in the lesson, or we studied together, were vandalism, arson, forgery, and DUI, which stands for driving under the influence of alcohol. Yes, so these were some of the vocabularies that we studied when we learned about legal vocabularies. Okay, also vocabularies related to crimes and legal vocabularies we studied were cybercrime, prostitution, rape or raping, and sexual harassment. Okay? We talked about violence, kidnapping, and assaults. all of these are considered as legal vocabularies. So make sure you have in mind these vocabularies, you have memorized them. I don't endorse memorization because I know that memorization is not um, a helpful method for learning language, but sometimes you have to do that. But here I'm not asking you to memorize them as in you only memorize them for the test. Memorization doesn't work that way. I want you to understand them and use them in sentences, looking at the Kurdish vocabularies for them. And if you can translate these sentences because they'd be good for you because they'd show you how the exam test will be. Exam questions will be. Okay, what else? We talked about disasters, things like explosions, earthquakes, floods, tornadoes, famine, drought, epidemics. And as I said, one of fun fact when I was discussing this last year, um, we uh, we were talking about the flu because it was the only thing that we had was the flu. So I used the word epidemic, but don't forget if an epidemic becomes a universal medical condition, then it becomes a pandemic. A pandemic, like the coronavirus or the ronavirus. Next, finally, well, actually, not finally, we had other vocabularies. I think we talked about names of ministries and some political words, and also we had something about whatchamacallit, I think cuisine. And before cuisine, there was something else which I forgot. First lesson, I've totally forgotten, but it was something else. Final lesson we've covered in this module into English, translation into English, was, sorry about that, media related vocabularies. Uh, um, we we studied together, or we learned together the word journalist, activist, correspondent, anchor, commercial, and documentary and coverage. I actually corrected this. I edited this in my a newer version of this document. We said coverage is Ramalin or something like that. Something like that. But I'm not sure exactly if um, it's like when they're covering the news. I did make a lesson of this, and I did say the correct word for it. Rumal, sorry, Rumal, yes. Rumal Kirna, um, Rumal Kirna, Hawala. So coverage was also one of the words that we've um, um, studied in the last electronic lesson in this module. So I'm going to leave it here. As I said, if you had any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. You're more than welcome to ask questions, and I'll gladly answer all of your questions in due time. And so I think I don't have anything else to say. Please study well and prepare yourselves, and have a very good luck. Take care.